She is the state registrar.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, hold on just one moment, please.
This is Mariah. How may I help you?
Hey, Mariah, I have a couple questions here about requesting and using birth certificates, and I was hoping you could help me out.
Okay, I'll sure try.
Yeah, state of South Dakota actually own the birth certificate?
I'm not quite sure how to answer the ownership of it, but these are the records filed in our office can be given out with an application and a fee.
All we can get is a copy of the birth certificate, right? Like a certified copy?
Nothing can be taken from our files, no.
Okay. And so the state of South Dakota Corporation actually owns the original records.
They're filed here, yes.
This is what is causing me a bit of confusion that I'd like to get cleared up. Because the state of South Dakota owns the birth certificate, and they have indicated on the birth certificates that any reproduction of the certified copy is void. So any copying of it is void. Self, names, everything is owned by the state of South Dakota. So what I'm wondering is, how could I legally request something that doesn't belong to me legally, because I'm not an attorney? And also, when I was born, the document was created like around 7 days after I was born. So I couldn't have had anything to do with the creation of it. So how do I legally request and use that birth certificate?
You would show us proof of identity. And I don't think that we own any names. We own a document that has that information on there so it can be authenticated. So, we're not taking ownership over everyone, obviously. We just have the documents filed here, and we give them out. You're not the only one that can get a copy of your birth certificate. In South Dakota, anybody with enough information to locate the record can fill out an application and get an informational copy of a vital record. That's birth, death, marriage, everything.
A photo ID, right? Well, the problem is that I would have to have the birth certificate in order to get that ID in the first place. It's a catch-22
Well,
thing.
no, we do allow for other means of identification. You can send in, if you get a copy of our application, it's all listed on the back there. You can get your signature notarized. You can send in a copy of your Social Security card with a copy of your bank statement with your current address on it, and there's several different combinations that you can send in. We don't just require a photo ID.
All those things, like the Social Security card, bank statement, all these things require a birth certificate to begin with. And I don't have any of these things, nothing. And the reason that is because I don't have legal authority to actually use the name, like the child's name section of the birth certificate, because they own, it's not just a piece of paper they're claiming ownership of. I'm not seeing how it would be legal for me to actually request something that I didn't have anything to do with creation-wise, and it's owned by South Dakota.
Oh, I see your question there. Unfortunately, I'm not an attorney, so you'll want to visit with an attorney about the legal ramifications of.
Actually, I have, and they tell me to contact Vital Records, and I have talked to.
To do what?
Well, I've talked to a few attorneys about this, and they said the best people to talk to about this are attorneys within Vital Records, or people, or the registrar at Vital Records, because they can tell you whether or not the requesting and using of the legal documents, such as the birth certificate, is legally okay. And the whole point of this questioning is to find someone who can say, hey, it's legally okay to use this document that's not really yours. You can only, get a copy of it, you see. So, and so far, I haven't been able to find someone who will give me written permission to use the name at the child section. You would think that would be available, but there's no one out there who will say you can, in writing, that anyone can use the name at the child section.
Have you been denied an ID because you are using the name that was on your birth certificate?
No, because what it comes down to is it's not my birth certificate. It's the state's birth certificate. And the state is just simply a legal entity. It's a legal corporation. And
so the people that are requiring you to show them a certified copy of your birth certificate, are they denying you use of that?
No, no. I'm not even getting to that point because I can't get the birth certificate because I am seeing a very clear problem with doing so because I'm going to have to misrepresent, like the child's name, I'm going to have to misrepresent to vital records that it's mine, when in fact...
So your parents didn't give you the name that they put on the birth certificate?
Well, Mom, the name that she put on, like the long form at the hospital, the name that she put on that, it was subsequently by the hospital staff registered. It was given to vital records and registered that way. And now once that happened, vital records put a copyright on it. And
you don't have a copyright on that, no.
They do, because it says void if copied on the bottom of the birth certificate, and it says any reproduction of the document is prohibited by statute. So that's a copyright claim.
It's just saying that it's not an authenticated copy at that point because someone could make a photocopy and alter something on it.
Right.
And so then we can't be held responsible for that information.
Right. And so that's an ownership thing. All I can get is a certified copy from the owner, which is the state. So they're the owner. And so if they're the owner, and obviously I can't be the owner of the birth certificate because I was only 7 days old when it was created. So it didn't have anything to do with me. So the name that Mom gave me, she gave to the corporation, the state. And so that's theirs. It's not just a birth certificate, like a piece of paper that the state owns. They own the name and everything on it. That's theirs. I
think your best bet would be to, I'm not quite sure how to answer your questions because we don't oversee all of the entities that are requiring you to show the birth certificate. So I really think that maybe your issue needs to be with the entities, the bank that's saying that you have to show a birth certificate. That's where that argument needs to be made. That no, that's not mine. Or however you think of that.
I see.
So,
I see what you're saying, but there's a problem just before that. The first step is to actually get the birth certificate to show them. I'm not having problems with these other entities. What I'm having a problem with is actually requesting the birth certificate. And the reason is because
okay. So you've sent in an application and we've denied you?
No, here's the problem I'm having. If I were to send in the application, I'm going to have to use the child's name. The child's name is not mine to use because the state they own that. They created that birth certificate.
We're not telling you to. We're saying we have a section that asks for your information, and then we have a section that says give us the information on the birth record. So you're really not misrepresenting yourself.
Well, okay.
You voluntarily give us your information now, and then tell us what record that we need to go look for.
Well, here's the problem with that. If the birth certificate said Joe Smith on it, and I were to represent myself as Joe Smith, I would actually be infringing on a copyright holder and an intellectual property owner because that name is also on a legal document called the birth certificate. And so what I would need to avoid the legal conflict there and the copyright infringement is to get some kind of written permission, if possible, for me to even use the child's name in the first place. Is that something we can do?
No.
Okay.
No, I would go see a judge about that.
Well, that's the thing. The attorneys are the ones who actually own this stuff. And I've already talked to them, and they have said, look, we can't give you this permission. We're not going to. Maybe someone in Vital Records can help you. So unless I have no authority in state statute that gives me the authority to tell you that you have the right to use that name. It's just not written out, so you have to have this conversation with. Since it's not written in statute, then you need to visit with a judge in South Dakota so then he can make that determination, he or she. Yeah. Well, as it stands, it's totally illegal to use legal names and birth certificates because they're not owned by us. Because we can't be involved in situations that we didn't have anything to do with in the first place. And the birth certificate is one of these situations. Okay? and we cannot be claiming to be that child's name when in fact the superior claim is a legal one, and the state actually says they own that. They own that name and they own that birth certificate and everything on it. So, have you ever heard of the legal name fraud?
But legal name fraud, or are you referring to something specific?
The legal name fraud, it's where it's a situation that's occurring, and in your own free time, you can take a look at the website losethename.com, or you can Google legal name fraud, it'll get you to the same place. But it goes into this, and there's I and several other people, we're trying to figure out if we can get written permission from someone employed by Vital Records. We're trying to get written permission to actually use the child's name on the birth certificate in order to make a written request. And so far, we're not having any luck. And so what we're getting out of that is that in order to use the legal name and to use the birth certificate to breed other legal documents, that's not legal. So it requires us to trespass as a third-party interloper onto a legal document that we have nothing to do with legally. So we're actually committing a crime every time we request and use birth certificates.
I will certainly read up on those websites, but I would really encourage you to make that petition to a judge in whatever state that you're dealing with. If you're dealing with that's where this needs to happen, because they are the authority.
Sure.
Not written in state statute. I can't do it. So you'll want to visit with a judge.
You know what the first thing the attorney will ask, or the judge, or as you call them, the first thing they're going to ask for is a legal name.
That you can't. I'm sorry that you feel you can't use that name. That there's nothing in statute that says that we own that name, that you can't use it.
Well, let me give you another piece of information. There's a website called 1998 Crown Copyright in the Information Age. Okay, and on page 29 and 31 of that document, it very specifically states that the birth certificate is copyright protected. And part of the reason people don't see this is because you earlier indicated that maybe these are not subcorporations of the U.S. corporation. All 50 states are legal subcorporations of the United States Corporation, located in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is a subcorporation of another corporation called the Crown Corporation, and that Crown Corporation has explicit copyright protection on all birth certificates.
Okay.
And given that you're a registrar, you might want to take a look at that PDF, 1998 Crown Copyright in the Information Age. You can Google that, and it'll be the first or second one that comes up. And so as long as there's a copyright, we can't do anything in terms of requesting or using a birth certificate until we get legal permission in writing to do so. And so we can't even go to the driver's license with this document that they need, because if we were to get the document without written permission, then we'd be misrepresenting ourselves as the owner of the legal name. And by the way, when I say legal name, have you heard that before? Isn't that what the name is under the child section of the birth certificate?
No, actually, we recognize that it's the birth name.
Okay, but is it also illegal?
Because my name that I go by now is not on my birth certificate.
Okay.
I have a legal name and I have a birth name.
Okay. So are you saying that they're totally different names?
That I'm not going to disclose that.
Okay. Well, as long as they're totally different, then you're right. But if they're the same, or if there's if you had a legal name change, then it's tied right back to the original birth certificate, and that's a legal name change becomes a legal name. It's just a different one from the birth certificate. But what I'm trying to say is, unless you're an attorney, you cannot use legal names. Otherwise, you're practicing legal without authority to do so. So that's where we're coming from.
Okay.
That's where we're coming from.
All right. I do have somebody here for a meeting right now, so if there's no other questions, I think that we're probably done here.
Okay.